Imagine for a second that you're standing out in the middle of this massive open field,
Okay.
and the sky above you suddenly turns this really violent, bruised shade of purple.
Ominous.
Right. Like the wind just completely drops out, the air pressure plummets so fast your ears actually pop.
Yeah, you can feel that heaviness in the air.
Exactly. And then, out of nowhere, this massive, terrifying lightning storm just cracks the sky wide open right above your head.
Wow.
Now, in that exact split-second moment, you have a choice to make about how you're going to interact with what's happening. Do you pull out a barometer?
A barometer, right.
Yeah. Do you start measuring the atmospheric pressure, charting the structural grid of the electrical discharge, like
Mm.
predicting where the next strike will hit based on meteorological laws?
Or do you do the exact opposite?
Right. Or do you just stand there in the freezing rain, throw your head back, and let the thunder vibrate so violently in your chest that it feels like your ribs are going to shatter?
I mean, that is the ultimate divide, isn't it?
It really is.
It's about capturing the structure of an event versus completely surrendering to the visceral, unmediated experience of it.
And that tension right there, that choice between mapping the storm and becoming the storm, that's the exact battleground we're exploring today on this deep dive into the source material.
And we should clarify, the battlefield isn't the sky.
No, it's not. It's actually the most profound, immediate, and honestly the most confusing terrain in human experience.
A human body.
Your body. The flesh and blood that you, listening to this right now, are currently sitting in. Today, we're pulling from a stack of sources that represent two of the most violently opposed philosophies in history.
We really are asking one massive question today, which is, what exactly is this physical vessel we're trapped inside?
Yeah. And we are not talking about biology in the strict medical sense here.
No, definitely not. We are talking about the philosophy of the flesh.
Right.
We're looking at a clash that I promise you, once you understand it, it will fundamentally alter how you view your own physical reactions, like your sudden anxieties, your deepest joys, and your actual capacity for freedom.
So on one side of the ring, representing what we are going to call the intelligible body, we have the 17th century rationalist philosopher Baruch Spinoza.
A giant of philosophy.
Absolute giant. We are diving deep into his masterwork, the Ethics. And when we say this is a rationalist text, I mean, Spinoza wrote this book quite literally like a geometry textbook.
It's kind of wild to read, actually.
It is. It's built on axioms, propositions, mathematical proofs. He treats human emotion, human flesh, with the exact same cool, calculating logic that a mathematician uses to define a triangle.
Which is just a fascinating approach to the messiness of human life.
It really is. And then in the opposite corner, representing the absolute destruction of that geometry, we have the eruptive body.
Oh, man. Yeah.
This is the domain of the 20th century visionary poet and dramatist Antonin Artaud.
And we are drawing heavily from his really explosive collection of essays, The Theater and Its Double,
Right.
as well as his incredibly controversial, initially banned 1947 radio play, To Have Done with the Judgment of God.
So basically, if Spinoza wants to read the blueprint of the house to achieve total peace, Artaud wants to set the house on fire, lock the doors, and scream at the flames.
That is a spectacular collision.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah.
So let's start with Spinoza. Because to really grasp what he's attempting to do in the 1600s, we have to look at what he was arguing against.
You really have to understand his context.
Right, because you can't understand Spinoza's obsession with a perfectly logical body without understanding the massive philosophical headache he was basically trying to cure.
Exactly. And that headache had a name. It was René Descartes.
Good old Descartes.
Right. To understand Spinoza's ethics, you have to understand the dominant worldview of his time, which was Cartesian dualism.
Which we still kind of live with today, intuitively.
Oh, absolutely we do. Descartes looked at human existence and divided it into two completely separate realms.
Yeah.
You have the mind, right? What he called the res cogitans, the thinking thing.
The thinking thing.
Yeah. And Descartes said this mind is pure, it's immaterial, it has no physical weight or location.
It's essentially ghost stuff.
Exactly. And then you have the body, the res extensa, the extended thing. And according to Descartes, the body is just a dumb mechanical meat sack made of gears, pulleys, and fluids.
It's the classic ghost in the machine setup.
Precisely.
You have this glowing, brilliant soul awkwardly strapped into a biological robot, and they are just constantly at war with each other.
Always.
The body wants to, eat, sleep and indulge in all these base desires while the mind is up in the control room desperately trying to steer the ship away from the rocks.
But Descartes ran into a massive foundational problem with this.
Right.
Philosophers called the mind-body problem.
Yeah.
And it's pretty simple when you think about it. The mind is completely immaterial, made of literal ghost stuff, like you said. And the body is completely physical, made of meat and bone. Well, how on earth do they actually talk to each other?
How does the ghost push the button?
Exactly. How does a ghost pull a physical lever? If I have an immaterial thought, like, I want to raise my hand.
How does that immaterial thought cause physical muscle fibers in your arm to contract?
It makes no sense.
Ah.
And Descartes' answer to this was, frankly, a bit of a desperate reach.
It's almost funny in hindsight.
It is. He claimed they interacted in the pineal gland, right in the center of the brain.
Which solves absolutely nothing.
What I get all.
It just shrinks the massive cosmic mystery down to the size of a tiny gland. It still doesn't explain how the immaterial ghost moves the physical gland.
Right. Spinoza looks at this entire Cartesian setup and realizes it is just intellectually bankrupt.
He's not having it.
Not at all. He completely rejects this dualism.
Yeah.
And his solution in the Ethics is one of the most radical, dangerous ideas of the 17th century.
Dangerous enough that it got him effectively excommunicated from his community.
Yes, it did. Spinoza introduces what we now call monism, or specifically his doctrine of parallelism.
Okay, break that down for us.
He says, look, there are not two substances in the universe. There aren't ghosts and machines. There's only one substance.
One underlying reality to everything.
Yes, and he calls this single infinite substance God or nature. In Latin, Deus ex natura.
God or nature.
They are perfectly synonymous for Spinoza. Nature isn't created by God. Nature is God.
Which is where the heresy charters come in.
Oh, big time. And this infinite substance has infinite attributes, but human beings can only perceive two of them. Thought, which is the mind, and extension, which is the physical world.
Okay.
Therefore, the mind and the body are not two different things fighting a war. They are the exact same thing, just expressed in two different ways.
So it's like two sides of a coin.
That's a great way to put it.
If you look at the coin from one angle, you see a physical body moving through space. But if you look at the exact same coin from another angle, you see a mind experiencing thoughts and emotions.
Right, they run perfectly parallel, hence parallelism.
And the implications of this for you, the listener, are just staggering.
Truly.
Because if mind and body are the same substance running in perfect parallel, it means there is no such thing as a physical state that doesn't have a corresponding mental state.
Every single physical twitch has a mental echo.
And more importantly, it means the body is not a chaotic, sinful, unpredictable beast that the mind has to whip into shape.
No, not at all. Because it is part of God or nature, the body is governed by strict, flawless, absolute necessity.
Everything follows a rigid chain of cause and effect.
Everything.
There's no magic, there's no randomness, there's no free will in the sense of a mind suddenly deciding to break the laws of physics.
Spinoza doesn't believe in that kind of free will.
So if your heart rate spikes, if your palms start to sweat, if you suddenly feel this huge wave of nausea, it happened because a precise chain of physical causes forced it to happen.
Exactly.
And simultaneously, your mind experiences the exact parallel chain of emotional or psychological causes.
Spinoza writes in The Sources that infinite things follow in infinite ways from the divine nature. The universe is a pristine clockwork.
A perfectly predictable machine.
And this brings us to how Spinoza views human emotion, which is honestly perhaps the most famous part of the Ethics.
Because if the universe is a flawless clockwork, then human emotions aren't these mysterious demons possessing you.
Right, they are just gears turning.
I really want to dig into this because reading Spinoza's breakdown of human emotion is surreal.
It is very systematic.
He literally maps out our deepest, messiest feelings like a chemical equation.
He does. He starts with three primary effects. Just three.
That's the whole foundation.
Yeah. You have desire, which he defines as the fundamental drive to persist in existing.
Okay.
Then you have joy and sadness. That's it. That's his primary color wheel. Everything else is just a combination of those three.
It's an incredible psychological architecture.
It really is. Spinoza defines joy as the transition of the body and mind to a state of greater perfection.
A greater power of acting.
Exactly. So when your body encounters something that agrees with it, say nutritious food or warm sunlight, or a really stimulating conversation, your physical vitality actually increases.
Right.
And in parallel, because of the coin, your mind experiences the emotion of joy.
And sadness is just the exact opposite of that.
Right. It is the transition to a lesser perfection. Your body's power is diminished by an encounter like eating bad food or getting insulted, and your mind experiences sadness.
So how does he get from there to the complex stuff? Like, how does a geometric proof explain something as messy and human as jealousy or hatred or
Or
romantic love?
he does it by tracking the external costs.
Okay, walk me through that.
So Spinoza just thinks love is simply joy, accompanied by the idea of an external cause.
Wow, okay.
Right. If you experience an increase in your vitality
Okay.
and you associate that increase with a specific person, you feel love toward them.
That is so analytical.
And hatred is just the inverse. It's sadness accompanied by the idea of an external cause. If something diminishes your power and you identify the source, you hate it.
It sounds so incredibly clinical.
Or it is entirely clinical. Let's take it a step further into something really ugly, like malicious envy.
Okay, let's hear it.
Spinoza derives it purely logically. Try to follow the chain.
I'm ready.
If you love something, you want it to be preserved.
Sure.
If someone else destroys the thing you love, they have caused you sadness. Therefore, you naturally feel hatred toward the destroyer.
That makes sense so far.
Now, if you imagine the destroyer experiencing sadness themselves, your mind, which hates them, actually experiences a parallel spike of joy.
Oh, wow.
Thus, Schadenfreude, the joy at someone else's pain. It is calculated step by step.
Okay, I have to step in here because the architecture of this is beautiful. I'll admit that.
It is elegant.
It's like looking at the schematics of a completely transparent mechanical watch. You can see the mainspring of desire. You can see the little brass gears of joy and sadness interlocking.
Yeah.
And if you understand the tension, you are never surprised when the minute hand of jealousy ticks forward. It had to move. But, my flesh pushes back against this.
How so?
Well, I hear you explaining the geometry of hatred, right? But when I am actually in the throes of blinding visceral anger,
Yeah.
it does not feel like a geometric proof.
No, it rarely does in the moment.
It feels like my blood is literally boiling and my chest is caving in. Does Spinoza actually believe that intellectually dissecting my anger physically stops the boiling?
He absolutely does, and this is the crux of his entire project for human liberation.
Oh, hey.
Spinoza makes this really critical distinction between what he calls passive effects and active effects.
Passive and active.
Yes. When you are consumed by blinding visceral anger, you are experiencing a passive affect. You are a passive victim in that moment.
I'm just being swept away by it.
Exactly. Your gears are being pushed around by external forces. Other people, the weather, your lack of sleep, and your mind is confused. You're suffering because you don't understand the chain of causality.
You think the anger just sort of happened to you.
Or you think that the other person is entirely magically evil. You're reacting blindly.
Right.
But Spinoza argues, and this is a radical claim about the power of the human intellect, he says that the moment you stop and form a clear, distinct, rational idea of why you are angry, the emotion fundamentally changes.
Wait, just by understanding it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The moment you map the causality like, okay, I am not angry because this person is inherently evil. I am experiencing a transition to lesser perfection because their words interacted with my specific historical insecurities, causing a physical drop in my vitality. In that exact moment, you are no longer passive.
You become the architect of your own mind.
Exactly. You step out of the confusion and you align your understanding with the infinite intellect of nature itself.
That's fascinating.
By understanding the cause of the passion, you strip away its power to terrorize you. The passive, chaotic emotion of anger is basically destroyed, and it gets replaced by an active intellectual joy.
The joy of understanding.
Yes. The body is an absolutely solvable mystery to Spinoza. If you can just trace the wiring, find the emotional short circuit, and understand it, you are free.
I see the appeal. I really, really do.
It's very empowering.
It is an incredibly comforting worldview. It suggests that if we just think hard enough, if we just analyze our traumas with enough precision, we can totally insulate ourselves from the chaos of being alive.
It's the ultimate defense mechanism.
Right. But let's leave the pristine, well-lit geometry classroom of the 17th century for a minute. Let's step into the mid-20th century. Because if Spinoza believes the body is a transparent watch that we can master, Antonin Artaud looks at that watch, vomits on it, smashes it with a hammer, and sets the pieces on fire.
That is precisely the shift. We move from the intelligible body, straight into the eruptive body.
And it is a violent transition.
Artaud completely detonates the rational framework. He doesn't just disagree with Spinoza's specific equations regarding emotion.
Yeah.
He believes the entire enterprise of using reason, logic, language, and geometry to understand human life is a profound sickness.
Let's set the stage for Artaud because his context is essential to understanding why he's so angry.
It really is.
We are looking at a man who suffered immensely. He spent nearly a decade locked in various psychiatric asylums in France during the 1930s and 40s.
This is a brutal experience.
He endured 51 electroshock treatments. He lived through the absolute devastation of 2 world wars. He saw the absolute peak of rational human society deploy industrialized slaughter across Europe.
Right.
So when he emerges and records his radio play, to have done with the judgment of God in 1947, he isn't writing polite philosophy from an armchair.
No. He is screaming for his life.
Literally.
The creation of that radio play is legendary in avant-garde circles. He recorded it with a group of actors, and it was filled with actual screams, beating on drums, glossolalia.
What's glossolalia?
It's speaking in invented rhythmic tongues that completely bypass literal meaning. Just raw sound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the director of French broadcasting actually banned it the day before it was supposed to air, claiming it was too abrasive, too obscene for the public.
I mean, I can see why a 1940s audience wouldn't be ready for that.
And it was abrasive because Artaud's central thesis is that language and rational structure actively betray the body.
In the text, his descriptions of the body are so violent and suffocating.
Be very visceral.
He talks about society, religion, and rationality pressing down on him until he experiences a literal explosion of his physical form against that structure.
Yeah, there's a line in the source material where he says, "I farted from unreason and excess and for the revolt of my suffocation."
It's so grotesque, but intentionally so.
Exactly. He uses that grotesque bodily language to aggressively reject the polite, sanitized idea of a logical mind.
So Artaud introduces this massive foundational concept that he calls the theater of cruelty.
Yes.
And we have to stop here and completely redefine the word cruelty because I think listeners naturally associate it with sadism or literal bloodshed or like a horror movie.
Right, and that is not what Artaud means at all.
He explicitly states he is not talking about the cruelty of one person torturing another.
No. For Artaud, cruelty is a raw cosmic force. It is the inexorable necessity of life and death. It is the terrible, beautiful force that shatters forms and breaks meaning.
Give us an analogy for that.
Think about watching a massive hurricane tear a century-old oak tree out of the ground by its roots.
Okay.
The hurricane isn't evil, it isn't sadistic, it doesn't hate the tree, but it is utterly cruel to the form of the tree.
It just obliterates it.
Right. It is a pure, unmediated intensity that refuses to be categorized, negotiated with, or put into a neat little geometric box.
And Artaud believed human life, at its core, possessed this exact same cruelty.
Yes, this eruptive force. And he believed that society spends all of its energy trying to cage it.
And to illustrate what happens when that cage actually breaks, Artaud reaches back into history and pulls out the most intense, terrifying metaphor he can find.
It's a brilliant essay.
He writes an entire piece comparing his vision of the body in theater to the plague of 1720 in the city of Marseille.
The bubonic plague.
Yeah. And he doesn't write about it like a historian charting transmission rates. He writes about it like an apocalyptic poet, witnessing the veil of reality just being ripped away.
The essay The Theater and the Plague is really a masterpiece of horrific imagery. Artaud fixates on the specific historical details of how the plague didn't just kill biological organisms.
Right. It did much more than that.
It completely melted down the social, moral, and psychological architecture of human civilization.
The details he pulls from the historical record are so surreal. He describes the ship, the Grand Saint-Antoine, arriving in the harbor, bringing the contagion. But he focuses entirely on the sociological breakdown.
The chaos.
He talks about the strictures of polite society instantly liquefying. You have these wealthy misers who spent their entire lives hoarding wealth, suddenly throwing their gold coins out of the windows into the streets.
Because the structure of value had completely evaporated.
Exactly. What does gold mean when everyone is dying? And then you have citizens fully aware they're going to die in a matter of hours, copulating in the public squares on top of rotting corpses.
The entire facade of rational human behavior, the laws, the etiquette, the moral restraint, it all just collapses overnight.
Because the plague, in Artaud's view, reveals the lie of the intelligible body.
What's truly fascinating is Artaud's obsession with the medical autopsies of these plague victims.
Oh yeah, tell them about this.
He notes that doctors opening up the corpses often found these bizarre anomalies. Sometimes there were no physical lesions on the organs at all.
No buboes.
Right. The liver might be completely intact, but the brain and the lungs had literally been reduced to powder.
Just turned to dust inside the body.
Exactly. There was a total internal collapse of organization without a localized gangrene.
And Artaud uses this to make a really wild leap.
He does.
He argues that the plague is not merely a biological virus, he calls it a psychic entity.
Yes, a spiritual force of absolute disorganization that works through the flesh.
For Artaud, the plague is the ultimate manifestation of the eruptive body.
Spinoza's transparent watch is a comforting delusion we cling to when times are peaceful. But the plague reveals the truth.
Which is what?
That the body is not an equation exchanging motion and rest. The body is the site of a profound disaster. The body is capable of a terrifying raw intensity that completely defies logic.
So Artaud believes that rational structure, our language, our etiquette, our moral systems actually represses and distorts the true lived intensity of being alive.
Completely.
The real body only appears when the watch breaks. It appears in screams and spasms and delirium and in the fever dreams of disease.
Which perfectly sets up our first direct clash between the two thinkers.
Let's do it. Clash number one.
If we put them in the ring together over the concept of human emotion, the incompatibility is absolute.
Right, because we discussed how Spinoza views emotion. Emotion equals structure.
Exactly. Anger and fear are analyzable, and dissecting them with the mind is the singular path to freedom.
Spinoza says, analyze the jealousy, map its causes, and you diffuse its power. You gain an adequate idea of it, and it ceases to be a torment.
And Artaud looks at Spinoza dissecting his jealousy in a laboratory and basically says, the exact moment you analyzed it, you falsified it.
Yeah.
You killed the actual emotion.
I want to really dig into this because this is where Artaud starts to resonate on a very instinctual level for me.
How so?
Well, Artaud claims that trying to put a raw bodily feeling into an intellectual concept is like trying to catch a lightning bolt in a cardboard box.
That's a great image.
You don't capture the lightning, you just burn the box. In the sources, Artaud makes this radical demand. He says, we must burn the Library of Alexandria.
And he doesn't mean literally go burn down a modern library.
Right.
He means we must completely discard our stored, intellectualized culture.
The archives of human thought.
Exactly. We rely so heavily on written tests, on psychology textbooks, on past definitions of what it means to be human, that we've forgotten how to feel the actual unnameable energy surging through our veins.
We're trapped in our own explanations.
For Artaud, an emotion is not a formula. It is an explosive presence. It is completely irreducible to language.
Let's apply this directly to you listening right now. Think about the last time you experienced a moment of profound, world-shattering grief.
Oh, yeah.
The kind of grief that physically drops you to the floor, where you can't breathe. Or think about the exact moment you fell deeply, overwhelmingly in love, where your skin felt like it was humming.
When you were in the absolute blinding center of that physical feeling.
Right, when you were right in the middle of it. Did writing it down in a journal make it more real?
Probably not.
Did sitting across from a therapist or a friend, sipping coffee and calmly explaining the roots of your feeling actually capture the violent vibration in your chest?
See, Spinoza would argue yes, eventually.
Right.
He'd say the process of translating it into language and logic is how you map the territory and regain control of your ship.
But Artaud says no. Artaud says the moment you put words to it, the moment you forced your vocal cords to say the polite sentence, I'm experiencing grief, you categorized it.
You shoved it into a pre-existing social box.
You put a neat little label on it, and in doing so, you killed the actual terrifying, raw intensity of the feeling. You traded the chaotic reality of your flesh for a polite, socially acceptable symbol.
Which brings us to the deepest ontological clash between them.
Clash number two.
Right. If emotion operates this differently between the two of them, what is the actual physical organism? What is the human body?
We know Spinoza's answer. The body is majestic. It is governed by the laws of nature, it is an extension of God, and therefore it is inherently ordered and intelligible.
And Artaud's answer is perhaps his most famous and frankly his most disturbing contribution to philosophy.
Here we go.
In the radio broadcast, To Have Done with the Judgment of God, Artaud states his desire to place man on the autopsy table and fundamentally remake his anatomy. He wants to scrape away what he calls the animalcule of God, to create what he terms a body without organs.
A body without organs. It's an incredibly visceral, almost horror movie phrase.
It really is.
But he doesn't literally mean taking a scalpel and scooping out someone's liver and lungs, right?
No, no, it is a philosophical and theatrical concept.
Yeah.
When Artaud uses the word organs, he is playing with the root word, organization.
Organization.
He means the way society, religion, biology, and habit dictate exactly how your body is supposed to function.
Give me an example.
A mouth is organized for speaking polite words and eating food. Eyes are organized for reading texts. Genitals are organized for reproduction.
Everything has an assigned job.
Yeah, exactly. And Artaud despises this utility. He feels this biological and social organization is a prison imposed upon us by a judgment, the judgment of God.
He is basically asking, why must my body be reduced to a machine with assigned utilitarian tasks?
Yes.
Why must my mouth only produce dictionary-approved words?
Precisely. A body without organs is a body that has completely dismantled its automated habits.
It's broken the programming.
It's a body of pure potential, pure intensity, completely free from the structures imposed on it.
How did Artaud actually attempt to achieve this, though, in real life?
Through his theater. Through actors engaging in what he called the reverse dance.
Exactly.
Moving backwards, contorting their limbs in ways biology didn't intend, screaming in glossolalia to bypass the organization of language entirely.
It's an attempt to return the body to a state of raw, screaming existence before society civilized it.
Exactly. So Spinoza looks at the body and sees a perfectly balanced equation. Artaud looks at the body and sees a wound.
He sees a site of violent, untranslatable intensity that fundamentally refuses to behave.
And this leads us to clash number 3, the ultimate goal of both philosophies.
Freedom.
Right, because neither Spinoza nor Artaud are writing just to be abstract for the sake of it.
No, they have an agenda.
They are both desperately seeking the exact same thing. Liberation. They both want to teach us how to be free, but their definitions of freedom are on totally different planets.
Let's examine Spinoza's version of freedom first. And it's crucial to understand what freedom is not for Spinoza.
That's a really good point.
Freedom is absolutely not randomness. If you think freedom means waking up, having a sudden urge to quit your job, move to Vegas, and gamble your life savings, and you just do it because the urge hit you, Spinoza would look at you with deep pity.
He'd say you aren't free at all.
He would say you are a slave in that moment.
Yeah.
You are completely enslaved by a passive emotion, a sudden spike in desire caused by an external trigger you don't even understand.
Right. Random, uncaused action does not exist in his universe.
Right.
So true freedom for Spinoza is the profound, active understanding of necessity.
Understanding necessity.
It is the clarity of knowing exactly why things are the way they are. The more you understand the rigid chain of causes acting upon your body and mind, the less you are pushed around by them in the dark.
You align your mind with the infinite logic of the universe.
For Spinoza, freedom equals clarity.
Okay, I have to challenge this. I have to bring back an analogy, because this is the central problem I have always had with Spinoza's rationalism.
Let's hear it.
Let's say I am locked inside a maximum security prison cell. I am miserable. Spinoza walks up to the bars, hands me a clipboard, and says, look, if you take out a measuring tape and measure the exact diameter of these iron bars, if you study the chemical composition of the concrete walls, and if you memorize the architectural blueprint of the entire prison until you understand exactly why every wall was placed where it is, you will be free.
It's a great visual. I can picture him doing exactly that.
But I'm still in the cell.
You are.
Isn't that just a massive intellectual coping mechanism? I know exactly how the bars are constructed, therefore I am free. My flesh is still rotting in a 6x8 box. I don't see how intellectualizing my misery physically frees me.
Your skepticism is entirely valid, and it really forces us to look closer at what Spinoza believes the mind is capable of doing.
Okay, defend him for me.
To Spinoza, your physical body might still be in a location you'd rather it not be. But by understanding the absolute necessity of the bars, by understanding the sociological, physical, and historical causes that built the prison and put you in it, your mind ceases to fight a futile war against reality.
You stop wishing things were different.
Exactly. You stop suffering from the passive effects of resentment and futile hope. Your mind elevates to the level of the architect. By understanding the laws of the universe, you actively participate in the divine nature.
So the bars stop being an alien imposition from the outside and become a truth you actively affirm.
Yes. So freedom is entirely internal. It is the peace of accepting reality through total comprehension.
Okay, I get the mechanics of it, but now imagine Artaud sitting in that exact same prison cell.
Oh, this is going to be good.
He is listening to Spinoza lecture about the chemical composition of the concrete, and Artaud is just losing his mind
And
laughing.
we're screaming.
Right, because Artaud's definition of freedom is rupture. Total destruction of the cell. Freedom is breaking the very structures that define you.
For Artaud, language itself is a prison cell.
Reason is a prison cell.
Your societal identity, your name, your job, they are all prison cells. And none of them should be understood or accepted. They must be shattered.
Artaud believes that if you are not throwing your body against the bars, if you are not trying to bend the iron with your bare bleeding hands, even if the effort completely destroys you, you are a slave.
True freedom requires the delirium of the reverse stance. It requires tearing away the programming.
And when you lay these two visions of freedom side by side, you hit this really uncomfortable realization about the debate we are having.
Which is,
We've been treating this like a boxing match. Spinoza in one corner, Artaud in the other, fighting over the same concepts. Body, emotion, freedom. But they aren't actually sharing a battlefield.
the meta-clash. No, they are not. They aren't just giving different answers to the same test. They are tearing up each other's test papers. Because Spinoza builds his magnificent airtight geometric system based on one massive, fundamental, unspoken assumption.
Which is what?
He assumes that human reason is valid. He assumes that our logical, analytical minds are actually capable of grasping the ultimate truth of reality.
And Artaud's entire life project is a nuclear assault on the concept of reason itself.
Yes. Artaud doesn't think reason is a flawed tool that needs sharpening. He thinks reason is a literal sickness.
An infection.
In his prefaces, he laments how Western civilization prioritizes forms, ideas, text, and representations over the raw, terrifying force of life itself. He sees our reliance on logic as an infection that separates us from the truth of our own bodies.
So it's an incompatibility at the level of thought itself.
Exactly. Spinoza builds a system to understand the universe. Artaud's philosophy destroys the very possibility of systems.
It's like Spinoza is standing in a sterile, brightly lit laboratory, carefully soldering the motherboard of the ultimate supercomputer to calculate the meaning of life. And Artaud kicks the door down, walks into the lab with a sledgehammer, smashes the supercomputer to pieces, and points at the raw, sparking, dangerous electricity arsing off the broken wires, screaming that the electricity is the only thing that matters.
That is a perfect metaphor. They are fundamentally incapable of communicating with each other.
Which is exactly why this next point is so incredible to me.
The hidden convergence.
Yes, because despite the supercomputer and the sledgehammer, despite the pristine geometric heaven and the plague-ridden hellscape, there is a hidden convergence between them, a massive philosophical twist.
I love this part. After all this opposition, they share a profound, radical, shared core.
The big reveal.
The big reveal is this. Both Spinoza and Artaud agree on one fundamental world-tilting truth. Truth happens in the body.
Which, might sound somewhat obvious to a modern listener, but historically this was an earthquake.
An absolute earthquake. Think back to what we said about Cartesian dualism. Before Spinoza, the vast majority of Western philosophy and theology was obsessed with the mind, the soul, the intellect. Right. The physical flesh was viewed with suspicion, if not outright disgust. The body was just a heavy, dirty anchor, pulling the pure soul down into sin, decay, and animalistic urges. Truth was found in heaven, or in abstract Platonic forms, entirely divorced from the meat.
But Spinoza comes along and says no.
By making mind and body parallel attributes of the exact same divine substance, he elevates the body to the level of the sacred. He says you cannot possibly understand the mind without understanding the affections of the body. He centers the flesh in the equation of reality.
And then, centuries later, Artaud takes that centering and pushes it past the point of no return.
Artaud completely isolates the body as the ultimate and, frankly, the only site of reality.
Right.
For Artaud, truth isn't found in a theology book. It isn't found in a philosophy lecture. Truth is found in the literal sweat of an actor exhausting themselves on a stage. It is found in the physical spasm of a plague victim. It is in the breath, the muscle, the blood, and the scream.
They share the exact same center of gravity. They are standing on the exact same patch of dirt, the physical body. But they get in their respective vehicles and drive at 1,000,000 miles an hour in violently opposite directions.
Well said.
Spinoza says, you have a body, understand it. Artaud says, you have a body, unleash it.
This creates what we can call the final tension of our deep dive today. If we try to compress this entire sprawling philosophical collision into one sharp, memorable juxtaposition, it looks like this.
Let's hear.
Spinoza promises us, if you logically understand your emotions, you will be free.
And Artaud stares back and replies, the exact moment you understand them, they are no longer real. The moment you understand them, they are no longer real. That line genuinely haunts me.
It is incredibly powerful.
It poses this terrifying question about our own interior lives. Does the act of translating a visceral bodily feeling into a neat intellectual concept inherently drain it of its life force?
It raises a profound question about the nature of a cure.
Right.
Spinoza desperately wants to cure us of our chaotic passions so we can live in serene clarity. But Artaud forces us to look at that serenity and ask, does Spinoza's cure actually kill the patient's spirit?
Wow.
If we manage to perfectly intellectualize every single impulse, every single fear, every single desire we have, are we still genuinely alive? Or have we just optimized ourselves into perfectly calibrated mannequins?
And this brings us out of the realm of abstract philosophy and crashing right into the modern day. Because I promise you, this clash between the intelligible body and the eruptive body is playing out in your daily life, probably on the smartphone sitting in your pocket right now.
Oh, without a doubt. Let's talk about how we treat human suffering today. Let's look at the massive industry of modern therapy, self-help, and wellness.
Yes. If you look closely, so much of modern psychological framing, especially modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy, is incredibly deeply Spinozist.
It really is.
Think about it. What are we taught to do when we are hurting? We go to a therapist, we sit on a couch, and we attempt to identify our triggers.
We map out our cognitive distortions.
We label our specific attachment styles. We say things like, oh, I am reacting with anger right now because I have an anxious avoidant attachment style that is being triggered by a perceived threat of abandonment linked to a childhood schema.
We are tracing the causality. We are trying to explain away our suffering in order to control it. We are taking the messy, chaotic emotion and forcing it to become mathematically intelligible.
And to be clear, it works.
It definitely works for a lot of people.
It genuinely helps people function in society. It reduces harm. But Artaud is screaming at us from a radio broadcast in the 1940s, asking a vital, dangerous question.
Is this rational control actually just a highly advanced form of repression?
By naming our deepest traumas and domesticating our wild anxieties into sterile clinical terms, are we suffocating a deeper truth about ourselves?
Is there something inside of us? A deep, howling grief over the state of the world? Or a massive, primal joy that transcends logic, that simply must remain untranslatable in order to be authentic?
Are we pathologizing the eruptive body?
Think about the absolute crushing demand of modern life to be Spinozist. We don't just intellectualize our emotions. We literally quantify our flesh.
Oh, absolutely.
You probably have a smartwatch tracking your heart rate variability right now,
Yep, I do.
graphing your sleep cycles, measuring your blood oxygen levels. We biohack our morning routines. We practice mindfulness apps to ensure we stay perfectly calm and emotionally regulated while sitting in 2 hours of gridlock traffic.
It's exhausting. We're constantly, exhaustingly trying to turn our bodies into perfectly understood, transparent watches.
The modern ideal is total intelligibility. No surprises. No unmapped territory.
Oh.
Total optimization of the biological machine.
But late at night,
Eh.
or when the power grid fails, or when you hear a piece of music that hits you in a way you fundamentally cannot explain, don't you feel it?
The Artaudian urge.
The urge to just scream, to break the form, to shatter the spreadsheet, to feel intense, unanalyzable, messy, chaotic life bubbling up under the surface of all that optimization. It's the body without organs fighting back against the machine.
It's the plague trying to break through the polite society. Artaud believed that true art, true theater, should act exactly like the plague. It shouldn't entertain us. It should arrive to shake us out of our stupor, to violently remind us of the terrifying, magnificent forces of life that we spend all our energy trying to ignore and regulate.
We have traveled a massive distance today. We started in Spinoza's perfectly ordered, geometrically intelligible vision of the flesh, a magnificent universe where every heartbreak and every thrill can be mapped, understood, and ultimately mastered through the sheer power of the human mind aligning with nature.
And we violently collided with Artaud's eruptive, plague-ridden theater of cruelty, a world where mapping the emotion inherently kills it, and where true freedom requires tearing down the very walls of reason to let the raw force of life burn through.
They both recognize that the human body is the ultimate battlefield of truth. Spinoza tried to negotiate an airtight peace treaty. Artaud decided to just drop a bomb on the battlefield.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Returning to Artaud's fascination with disease.
Okay, let's hear it.
We mentioned how he viewed the plague not merely as a disaster, but as a symbol for a necessary breakdown. He thought the plague arrived to destroy a society that was fundamentally sick with its own complacency and order.
Right.
Spinoza, conversely, sought the ultimate rational health of the mind. But what if our modern definition of health, being calm, maximally productive, constantly emotionally regulated, perfectly optimized, and perfectly rational, is exactly what Artaud would call a disease?
Oh, wow. What if being perfectly well-adjusted to a hyper-rational, hyper-structured world means your body has actually just fallen asleep?
It's something to think about the next time you look down at your sleep data or the next time you try to neatly rationalize away a sudden, inexplicable wave of emotion.
Which brings us back to that open field, the purple sky, the dropping pressure, the lightning storm tearing the sky open above your head. The next time a thunder rolls right over you, maybe put the barometer away, just for a second. Maybe stop trying to measure the voltage. Just stand in the rain and let the storm vibrate in your chest. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Until next time, listen to your bodies, whether they are ticking like perfect clocks or whether they are finally ready to erupt.